going on, everybody? Welcome to the Alex Cuesta Show. How's everybody doing out there on this Wednesday, August 7th, 2024, episode number 135? Dave, you found your way here again. Hello.
I know. Somehow, some way, I found my way here, and somehow, some way, we still found things to talk about. It's incredible.
I mean, there's always shit to talk about lately, right? Like the world is on fire constantly,
World
but I
is
have
on
liked some parts are literally on fire, but
No,
I've liked where we've been in the last few weeks. Now, I think we're going to get out of that space pretty soon, but
Mhm.
we've been hanging out in like kind of the cultural sphere the last few weeks, and I've truly enjoyed it. So before we get into all that, give us a like, share, follow, subscribe, rate us 5 stars everywhere you are, YouTube, X, Facebook. Hello to everybody out there watching. Go find us at the Alex Cuesta Show. Want to give a quick shout out last week's show. We had a great time. We talked to Jay, Drunk 3PO. We had a blast talking about the Achromatic Chronicles. My kids love it, and just how that all came to be, the Gina Carano stuff. And we went for like a whopping 2 hours. So it's longer than we normally do. And we just had a blast there. So go give that a look. And we're just going to get right into it. This week, I'm pumped because we have someone that, it's always good when you have people that you listen to jump on, agree to jump on. And I've enjoyed this show. We have Brett Dasovic. He is a co-host, Pop Culture Crisis, Timcast Media Network. What's going on, man?
And you got the last name correct. Holy crap.
We are
off to a fantastic start. Okay, I just assume everyone's going to get the name wrong.
See, I wasn't lying to you. I wasn't bullshitting you when I said I listened, okay? Yes. I've listened. I've seen you on Timcast. I've seen you. So I am a legitimate fan. So, Brett, we appreciate you coming on.
Of course, man.
If everyone that's watching doesn't know, Pop Culture Crisis, go find it on YouTube. You guys are live 5 days a week. What time are you live? Because I do listen later. I don't catch it live.
We are live Monday through Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific, if you're out there on the West Coast. And yeah, we are live 5 days a week. We talk about Hollywood. We talk about social media. We talk about internet trends. We go all over the place, but we have a lot of fun doing it. I would love it if people tuned in. I better see some people in the chat tomorrow.
Yeah, and you got Mary Morgan over there. Mary's lots of fun. You guys bounce off of each other so well. It's actually, we were talking a little before the show, and when you listen to it, it's hilarious because Brett's trying to be like upbeat and happy, and Mary just comes in and black pills every single segment, and it's fantastic. Like it's funny too because like she is the grumpy old lady with some things, and it's out of love. And I love listening to Mary doing that. It's fantastic.
She the stuff that she likes to talk about can be blackpilling, but a lot of it, it's interesting, but it's important culturally. Yeah. A lot of the things that she wants to get into. In fact, we talked about something today that I was giving her crap for because we were talking about kink talk. If you want to know what that is the people who talk about kinks, sexual kinks on TikTok. And I'm like, look, you do this to yourself. You're like, I'm not searching this stuff out to talk about it. You're the one who wants to talk about it. So what I imagine is that every day before she gets up for work, she puts on her hazmat suit and then just dives into the internet, and that'll black pill anyone.
I mean, you just got to go to one LGBTQ parade and you'll get enough kink talk for the rest of your existence.
And that's true that sometimes you do it to yourself. A lot of times you do it to yourself. Yeah. But there are very much times where any social media spot gives you a slight video where it's just like, okay, how stupid is this? You just see like the thumbnail or whatever. You tap on it and all of a sudden you see more and more. So sometimes it baits you. Sometimes you get fished into it.
Look, I get out, like what I do now is like for a while I deleted X off my phone so that I just wouldn't have to have it. Cause look, one of the things is like, this is a long-winded story, but like I'm several years deep into recovery, right? One of the things you learn when you get into recovery is that you have to be able to like acknowledge when things around you are affecting your mood or affecting your personality, in whether it's X or just going down the rabbit hole on YouTube or any other social media platform. The internet will affect your state of mind, and that happens. You go and look at the way people talk to each other on X, and you realize that they would likely never talk like that in person. So what I was doing for a while is I was deleting it off my phone. I deleted it off my phone, but here's the problem: my job requires me to unfortunately be attached and connected to all of these things.
Damn it, Tim Pool. Look what you've done.
Within 2 days, I had something that I was wrong about. That if I had, I think it was that right after the assassination attempt on Donald Trump, there was the video that was going around where he was supposedly golfing the next day. And I saw that. And look, I didn't even think about it. I was like, whatever. And then I mentioned that on the show, and somebody's like, that was disproven. If I had still had X on my phone, I would have seen before we ever went live that wasn't true. But if your job requires you to be connected to all of these things, you kind of have to. So the best thing that I can do is to avoid what you're talking about, which is like it just runs by you on your phone. To minimize those things happening, I just put it in like the most obscure part of my phone. So it's like hard for me to get to.
Yeah. It's like kind of putting the alarm across the room to wake up, right? Basically. So here's the thing. Number one, I don't appreciate the misinformation. We all know Trump was hit by glass and shrapnel, damn it.
Yeah.
We know that. Okay. That's number one. And number two, you need to excuse Dave when he says like, oh, it's coincidental. Dave is a frequent Keno casino watcher. So he's out.
No. I'm not saying I coincidentally fall into it, but I know how these things work, and I know that people can coincidentally fall into it.
Dave goes
I've been on the internet a long time.
Okay.
So.
I did see people are coining the term, and because conspiracy theorist has such a bad rap that now they're using coincidence theorist, which is like
a noticer.
Crazy.
I mean, conspiracy theorists should just be like, if Trump is smart, or even like you guys, like honestly, anyone that's like on the right, if you make apparel, just start coining the term and make it a positive, right? Because like, anything can be taken like, the left is trying to say like everything's weird. Which is
this is like a look, and to be fair, I still consider myself an old school liberal. I really do. Like I don't I work with people that are what I would consider
anymore, man.
right wing, but because of the shift of the Overton window, it's just so ridiculous now. But here's the thing: the argument about weird is never going to work. It's really, really funny because they were doing really, really well calling people racist, sexist, homophobic for like 8 to 10 years. And I don't understand the shift in tactics because to me, look, Austin's like motto is like keep Austin weird. They love to talk about stuff being weird as a good thing, but now they're trying to use it as like a high school pejorative that just doesn't land in the same way. No. It's not going to work. Not in the way that they think it's going to. They were a lot better off trying to make it far more perilous by labeling you with a bunch of istinphobes.
Yeah. And I actually think it might be a good bit of projection, which is what they usually do. Yeah. Because let's be honest, one of the terms people would probably use to describe Kamala before she was even VP during the campaign trail was weird. That was one of the ways that people would describe her. So it's really a good bit of projection there.
And I also think that there's a problem with now like calling everybody an ist on the right, because it used to be you thought of the left was like everyone and everything, right? But now you're seeing on the right, there's so many more black people, a lot more Spanish people, a significant amount more women that are jumping in and, openly being conservative, or at least more supportive of conservative values, where you can't get away with it as much anymore. Like when you're calling like Moms for Liberty sexist, or you're sitting there and saying like Thomas Sowell, like what are they gonna do? They're gonna call him an Uncle Tom. It's like, okay, that's a pejorative that now, it puts you in the negative light. So I think it's kind of like the right owning a lot of these things and just being like, yeah, sure. No, that's not like, you can't say it's true anymore because there's too many people that prescribe to that philosophy.
I mean, they get away with it though. The problem I have with that is it does work. It's in the same way that they still talk about the right as if they're the party of big banks and the party of the rich and the famous, and that's not really true anymore. We understand that, right? There was info that came out recently about the most recent updates from corporations donating to politicians, and they're donating to Kamala twice the rate that they're donating to Trump. And most companies, if they're smart, donate to both anyways because they care about as much as a storm cares about destroying your house. They just want to have the ear of whoever's in power.
And
so
the banks always go where they think they're going to get the most out of. And they're like, the dirty secret of politics forever is the big money lenders never only went over to Republicans. How do you think Democrats had funding, right? It was all deep pockets went there too. And I've always hated like this whole theory, like Democrats are the party of the people and this and that. It's like, no, their philosophy kind of hasn't changed very much. Like the people supporting them maybe believe that they were something they weren't. But man, since Woodrow Wilson, they have had a very leftist move as a higher up party, right? They've talked a big game, but their policies have kind of stayed in that realm. And I know we're getting dirty into politics right now.
They're not even talking about policy, though. They're not even talking about policy. That's the crazy thing. We were watching the Ben Stiller clip earlier. Do you guys see that where Ben Stiller says he wishes that he was okay.
He said all Jewish. Some wishes they were black or something like that. I forgot the quote.
As stupid as that is, and we talked about that today because it's a funny headline. We were talking about the fact that he goes, she's black, she's Indian. You can be more than one thing at a time. I'm like, I don't care about that. I want to know what she's gonna do.
Yeah.
Right. I want to know what she was gonna do. I would have had no problem. Look, like I said, I'm not. I'm far more. I'm probably closer to anarcho-capitalism than I am in a lot of ways, right? Like I abhor the idea of party loyalty, which I find to be extremely collectivist, and I disagree with it for the most part. And I think that a lot of people fall into that trap because, it sucks to go it alone. It sucks to be out there, especially in the world of politics, which is as nasty as it gets. All you have to do is spend a day on Twitter, and the second you fall out of line, both sides are more than happy to push the people within their party back into it. I'm never going to fit into that mold, and I've made peace with that, and that's fine.
Yeah, look at Kyle Rittenhouse. The kid makes one statement, and you know what? And here's the thing. The people like that, your Joe Manenario, whatever, Gunther Eagleming, even Cat Turd, they can all kind of get fucked because they're like these big Rabat cheerleaders for Trump, right? But then the moment they're free speech, they're free everything. But it's not even like if Kyle Rittenhouse came out and said Kamala 2024, okay, let's roast him, right? Honestly, that's fine. He came out and said Ron Paul. Like the most things that most of us agree with. It's a stupid thing to say, but I don't want to get too much into Kyle. Yes. I also because you know what,
we have a whole show planned.
We got a show to do.
Going backtracking on it, but I digress. But all right, let's get into the cultural shit. We went into politics. We were, Brett specifically was like, "Hey, I'm not too into politics anymore. I can talk about it." Here we go. We spent the first 12 minutes in the show talking about
it. It happens.
All right, so let's jump into the fun stuff, the cultural stuff. A lot of things that you guys talk about on Pop Culture Crisis. We're gonna jump right in. We want to talk about all of the success right now of Deadpool and Wolverine. Admittedly, I haven't seen it yet, even though I want to. I'm just two kids, 6 and 4-year-old. You don't go out to the movies very much.
Whatever you do, don't bring the kids there because there was definitely people bringing their kids to the movie, which was crazy.
It's like he made Once Upon a Deadpool for a reason. I guarantee if you would have just waited probably another 6 months, you would have maybe gotten a more child acceptable version because Ryan Reynolds is amicable to doing that after he gets the version he wants. So the success of Deadpool and Wolverine has obviously been big. I've seen some lame people on X going, Marvel's back. And so how do you feel about what we're seeing from Deadpool and Wolverine success-wise? Does it deserve it? And where does this kind of put Marvel right now?
So it's hold on, guys. My
oh boy.
Oh.
What did you
lose you?
My mic.
What I did.
Mic good?
I can hear you.
Yeah. All right, yeah. So if you ask me, the it's not back. Marvel is not back. That's going to happen. One movie can't save a franchise. It just can't. The Robert Downey Jr. stuff is a little bit more interesting in the idea that maybe perhaps it could save it down the line. But here's the thing. I don't think you can. Like the MCU through phase 3 was a cultural touchstone. It was a moment for this, for the world, not even for this country. I was about to say for this country, but you don't really find your way back to that success once you've tried something else.
Yep.
Around the brand. Look, the movies aren't going to go away. The movies are going to be just, they're still going to be coming out. But what it proves is that they didn't learn their lesson before here, that what they need to do is they need to rely on characters that everybody knows.
Yes.
So after the end of Endgame, they missed the mark on Black Widow because they should have put Black Widow out in between the final Avengers or the final Avengers movie. And after that, they tried to run a bunch of titles that people didn't like, right? Like nobody knows or cares about the Eternals.
Yep.
Okay? People for about a decade were making fun of all of the origin stories.
Yeah.
But that's what they need to get back to. They need to get back to characters that people know and tell good origin stories. The best thing that they could do right now would be to, after Fantastic Four, focus on a Henry Cavill Wolverine movie.
And another failed Fantastic Four, because again, this casting looks fucking terrible. Like it's why is Pedro Pascal and everything? Like, can we stop with this guy? Like, what is he doing? Like, I don't know.
Okay, it's really funny because he's one of those actors who I still remember him. My first other than Game of Thrones, my first introduction to him is he was in this obscure USA Network show called Graceland for like 5 episodes in season 1. And he's a great journeyman actor, meaning that if he's on television, he kind of seemed to hover between the next level. So he wasn't going to work on network television in a main character role. Mm-hmm. Rather, he was doing HBO and then working on more stuff. But he's a great journeyman actor that you bring in there if you need to get a 5-episode arc out of him or something like that. I did think that he was the only good parts of The Last of Us, and I was critical of that show, but the episodes that did do well did so because he was able to carry mediocre material and elevate it to a certain level. Is he going to be able to carry a Fantastic Four movie? I don't know. It's going to take a lot more than that. All 4 of those characters need to gel together for that to work. No one actor is going to be able to do that. If that was true, then certainly Michael B. Jordan might have been able to do it in Fan 4 Stick.
I forgot about that movie. Oh my God.
You know?
Yeah, no. And it's like, I don't know. I feel like at this point, we're looking at Pedro Pascal's career. His peak was getting his eyes gouged out right now on Game of Thrones. Like that was like his peak moment. And he was fucking awesome in Game of Thrones. Just his bravado and everything he brought to that. David, you didn't watch it, but it was, and that's at the peak of Game of Thrones, like when it was at its best too.
He's got Gladiator 2 coming out this year as well.
I hope if he gets his eyes gouged out in that too, then I will be convinced that he's cool with the bit, and
maybe he likes that. Maybe that's just
it just feels right.
It's like
TikTok, baby, gouging eyes.
It's like Quentin Tarantino and what was it, From Dusk Till Dawn?
Yeah,
where Salma Hayek has to pour liquor down her legs through her toes, and then he suspiciously hires himself to play the actor who does that.
In his defense, I would hire myself if that was Emma Hayek as well. Okay.
And he's like Thanos. He's like, I'll do it myself.
This is cultural. Let's get into this. Why is Salma Hayek like the thirstiest woman on the internet right now, including all the other ethos? Like, why is I would be embarrassed if I was her kids with half the shit she posts right now.
I mean, we talk about that all the time. I was like, why is it?
She's gorgeous, but
she is a conventionally still beautiful woman. And she's, I think she's like in her mid 50s or something like that. I get the impulse, but once a performer, always a performer. And I don't think they're thinking about their kids in those situations.
It's like, I do like Salma Hayek's hot. She's fun to look at, but her only job is to be hot. If my only job was to be good looking, like this is how I don't understand how some actors or actresses like fuck that part of their career up. Like they get out of shape or something. Like how? Yeah. But literally, your only job is to be good looking. You don't even have to act very well if you're good looking, right?
It's also one of those things where, back in the day, there's this great bit. If you've ever seen, do you guys ever watch Honest Trailers?
Very little.
I've seen some of them. Yeah.
So there's a bit in the Honest Trailers for Ghostbusters where Dan Aykroyd, Bill Murray, and they all stand next to each other. It says, "This is what movie stars look like in the '80s." So it wasn't until Tom Cruise kind of I remember Tom Cruise wrote an op-ed for a magazine back in the day, basically saying eat right, stay in shape. Your physical appearance is that's your checkbook. That's your moneymaker. Yeah. The best thing you can do is take care of yourself. Now, some actors admittedly don't necessarily need it. There's plenty of great actors. I'm going to watch John Goodman in anything. John Goodman doesn't need to have the 6-pack abs.
Yep.
That's not the point.
It'd be weird if he had 6-pack abs at this point.
Well, it'll be like when Seth Green decided to get into shape and his head was 8 times the size of his body and he got made fun of it. Which I feel bad for him for that, but it was oh, you were the chubby funny dude. Let's just keep you where you are.
They did it to when Kumail Nanjiani got in shape for the Eternals. I'm like, bro, you don't need to do that. I mean, you do because it's a superhero movie. But I'm saying in general, you're the comedy guy. You don't need to be.
Not everyone can Chris Pratt it. Chris Pratt's one of the guys that he translated. And we found out he's a genuinely pretty decent action actor as well. He's still quippy and things like that. He's still funny, but he does the action roles well enough that it's believable. Not everyone can do that.
We were talking about it today because one of the things that I get really annoyed with, again, if you're terminally online, you'll understand this take that people who dislike someone, they gleefully like to support their downfall. And what they were doing was Zachary Levi had a new movie came out last weekend called Harold and the Purple Crayon or whatever.
I'm probably going to take my kids to see it. I like the book. Yeah. I grew up, I read that book and I was listening to you guys and you're like this. And Mary was like, this is a fucking useless IP. Why is it coming out as a movie? And that's fine, but it's coming out as a movie because you got dads like me that need to take their 6 and 4-year-old to go see something.
Problem is they didn't advertise it to
Not
anyone
at all.
or
That's the
anything,
one
right?
thing.
So, and my point was like he was on social media all weekend promoting RFK. I'm like, how about you promote your movie? But my point was like, look, you've got Chris Pratt, you've got Zachary Levi, and you've got John Krasinski, who are kind of that trio of dudes who played geeky office worker types that then tried to transition to be action stars. Obviously, Zachary Levi doing it with Shazam.
Yep.
If you haven't seen Chuck, I do request everyone who's watching this to go watch the show Chuck. It's on both Amazon Prime and on HBO Max.
It's a few episodes. It's a good show.
It's fantastic. But between them, John Krasinski also made that switch as well. John Krasinski is a perfectly good action star in the same way that Chris Pratt is. Maybe not quite on the same level. John Krasinski seems to be just as interested about working behind the camera as he does in front of the camera. Yeah. But I loved his first season of Jack Ryan, though I didn't, I fell off after the first season. He does it well and he can do those roles, but that's a trope in and of itself, is the once kind of doughboy looking office guy who then becomes an action star.
Well, Seth Rogen tried it, but he also didn't try to get into shape because he did the Green Hornet. And he didn't even try to get into shape. And like this, he's embarrassing. The shit that he's doing in Hollywood is awful. He tries to put the high hippie type of dude in everything he does, and it's not good. And now that we found out he's like a total Marxist, like it doesn't help either. His popularity.
Santa Inc. is one of the genuinely worst things I've ever seen in my entire life. And anybody who watches our show, if you watch PCC, knows that I look for the best in everything we watch.
Didn't he do Sausage Party too? Wasn't that his thing? Where they were just orgy fucking the whole time?
Him, Franco, and them.
Yeah, that was a weird one.
And he threw Franco under the bus after everything with Franco and all of that stuff. So he kept his distance. Look, it's a brutal industry, but Seth Rogen was never my type of comedy.
Yeah. Well, he wanted to portray the kind of Cheech and Chong style of stoner person, but the issue is Cheech and Chong always seemed to be fun to hang around, where Seth was like, he could be fun sometimes, but he also gets really anxious and you don't really want to talk to him when he's in that state. So that he can't perfectly portray them. He can't fit that mold.
Yeah. And he definitely seems like that friend that gets annoyingly high at times. Like you have your friends, you hang out, they might just get a buzz and they're cool to hang out with, but he's that guy that doesn't know when to stop. That's what he seems like. So here's the thing. When it comes to Marvel, I don't know if this is a rumor or not. I'm kind of bringing it back here. Trying to bring it back. I don't know if it's a rumor or not, but there was the rumor that Kevin Feige fired all of his openly woke staff.
So that was Chris Gore actually.
Chris Gore was talking about that with the Critical Drinker. Yeah. Look, these are the types of things where I just kind of take a step back and say, look, it's like when we talk about celebrity divorces and there's this source, trust me, bro. I don't know. He could absolutely be right, but he is right about one thing in particular, which is that even if that is true, it's going to take 3 or 4 years before you see the repercussion, before you see the positive outcome of any of that, because there's too many movies that are already in the pipeline, too many things that are already been worked on. And even if that's true, right? A lot of the problem is that it's not just your creatives, right? The worst of the worst, as far as moral busybodies, find themselves to one place, and that's middle management. They love to put them there in middle management to work their way up. So am I supposed to buy that there's going to be some cultural overhaul? Because he also said that Kathleen Kennedy's going the opposite direction. I don't know if I buy a day where, once again, I'm looking at a bunch of great Marvel movies and still awful Star Wars movies. My guess is it's going to be a lot more of just typical hits and misses, because when you're not running with characters that people know or characters that people understand, then you're not going to get the engagement. When we were at Deadpool and Wolverine, there was people in all manner of Deadpool merch. All manner of Wolverine merch, all manner of X-Men t-shirts. These are characters that hit a far larger scale of cultural impact than many of the ones that they're trying to run with. It's the same reason why they still run with Batman. It's the same reason why they still run with Superman. And they don't even really use Superman that well.
They use him terribly.
And this actually, Spider-Man was so successful too, because who doesn't
exactly? Spider-Man is maybe the best example.
You don't have to be a comic book fan to know Spider-Man. And then you brought in all 3 iterations of them. Yeah. Is that the right word? But you brought in all 3
iterations. You added in that. It's okay.
I kind of corrected myself there. Yeah. But you bring in all 3 together. So now you're bringing in the 3 generations of fans, right? Because if somebody really loved Toby and they didn't like Andrew and they stopped watching. Now you bring them back. And it was like the worst kept secret in Hollywood. And it was fantastic that they were all sticking to the bit. Like, we're not in it.
It was really funny to watch Andrew Garfield. Like, he seemed to love telling people he wasn't in it.
And he snickered every fucking time. Like, he like would always do like his typical shit-eating grin that he always like is classic for. Which is like, Andrew Garfield's biggest curse about Spider-Man is he's too good looking.
Yeah,
that is this because I'm not believing that Andrew Garfield's getting stuffed in a locker and he's a giant nerd. Like,
but isn't the thing like again, like I didn't collect Spider-Man, but isn't he's not traditionally always portrayed as a nerd, right? That's like a more recent iteration.
No,
It depends on the run of Spider-Man.
Yeah,
depends on the run. He typically was a geeky kind of kid, but that was a very scientific guy. He always created his own website.
Look, scientists can be good looking too. Come on,
but you also have to remember that people were just coming off Toby. People love Toby, so that is what they really looked for in a Spider-Man in a movie in their kind of live action way of looking at. Yeah,
well,
Toby
and also, I mean, I think I watched we were in Nashville last year or something, and The Amazing Spider-Man 2 was on TV, and I just couldn't believe I forgot how many characters they just shoved into that movie, which they also did in Spider-Man 3, right? So and like there's just so much love for Tobey Maguire, but really Spider-Man might be the best example you have of a character that just has such cultural relevance, right? To this day, Spider-Man will, he speaks to kids. He speaks to that, to that age demographic. So there are still kids that wear Spider-Man merch to this day.
Yeah, 100%.
Even if they don't collect Spider-Man comics, they understand who Spider-Man is. They know he is, whether it's they watch the animated shows. Nobody's buying that, little kids are collecting comic books. They're not.
No.
But Spider-Man transcends that.
And, when Spider-Man was for Stan Lee, at least, and when he broke out on the scene, he became the center of the Marvel Universe in almost every major arc. It all, in the end, centered on Spider-Man. He was
That's
not.
What they do with Batman. That's what they do with Batman at DC.
And it's similar. And they're similar in a sense where they're not the strongest. They're not the best, but they always figure out a way, right? And Batman is very much that way. But we talked about Soups, and that's a good transition over to James Gunn and what's going on in DC. I mean, everything that's come out of these Superman stills and things like that have not looked absolutely fantastic.
I mean, they're not promotional images. You're seeing, look, there were pictures of just about every character will have like a leaked picture of a suit that doesn't look great.
Yeah.
But when people saw Ben Affleck for the first time as Batman in the first trailer for Batman vs Superman, and he's just yoked out of his mind and he's coming out of the rubble,
awesome.
that was fantastic. It looked great. So you have to really wait until you start seeing promotional images. Yeah. Now I know what people were saying is like there was like creases in the suit. From what I understand, or at least what I was told, is those are suits that are specifically made for harnesses that they're wearing when they're doing stunts and stuff like that. I don't know if that's true, but I'm like, it's the same thing they do every time they cast a new Joker, right? And they say, oh, they're going to be horrible. And then you have to wait and see. And of course, it's
almost every character. I mean, when they cast Hugh as Wolverine, people were not exactly excited as Hugh as Wolverine, and now look where he is. So it's every character.
He also, have you ever seen the pictures of him from Wolverine 1 and you see how normal he looks?
Yeah.
Because it was like Bradley Dorff or somebody was supposed to play him first, and then he backed out right before filming, so they called up Hugh Jackman, and then he gets to X2 and he's just yoked.
Yep.
He's yoked, and then he makes the origins and the scene with him popping out, and he's just like, Jesus.
Yep.
I want to be that guy. But so what can James Gunn do in DC? We talked about Marvel. Marvel's going to take a little bit. James Gunn's a little bit earlier now into the process, right? It looks like Feige's really starting to reset now. James Gunn has had about a year now that he's been in charge of DC. I think he's starting off the right way. If you can get a good Superman there, and the thing is, like, Man of Steel, I know people didn't like Man of Steel very much, but in terms of the action and the way they did the fighting and the flying, I'm a big manga anime nerd. That's all I need for Dragon Ball. With the way they were fighting in air, give me that for a Dragon Ball film. So I thought they got some things right with Man of Steel. I thought Henry Cavill had the right demeanor.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Soups, he was a very good, very Christopher Reeves-esque in a lot of ways. And so I'm curious what they're going to do here, because it's always hard to tell a story about a perfect speed being, right? And you bring it back to the origin to try and make him a little weak. So I'm curious how they're going to do this. Are we going to jump right into Soups being Soups? Like, what do you think Gunn can do here in terms of Supes and everything else coming up?
First thing that I would do is kind of detach yourself from his traditional storytelling. I loved his Suicide Squad movie. I did. I loved it a lot.
Yeah.
I loved Peacekeeper, Peacemaker.
Yeah, Peacemaker. John Cena was great in it.
I was just watching Peacekeeper with George Clooney.
Yeah,
recently.
Yeah.
But I love Peacemaker. I loved his Suicide Squad movie. He is fantastic at doing adultish humor that finds a core of heart to it. He needs to get away from the adultish humor and tell a story that is core to just being a heartfelt message. And
it can't all be Guardians of the Galaxy, and that's what Marvel's been trying to do. They made Thor, who is a very serious character, who, a quip is fine here and there, but they made Thor, every line he said was a joke, and that became Marvel. Every line they said was a joke, and it's like, okay, Chris Pratt can deliver that well. Robert Downey can deliver those well.
Only a couple of people are actually able to do that. It's why Captain America Winter Soldier is still the best Marvel movie to this day, because they don't use that formula for that film, right? But they can't take that approach when doing Superman, right? Like, if you're going to tell story of family and loss and all of these things, or discovery of your home, and who you were, before you came to live in Smallville, it can't be punctuated with a joke every 5 to 7 minutes, right? Like, I don't want to hear Perry White like drop a one-liner. I don't.
Yeah.
And that's not really Superman's style, right? Like, we talk kind of about the dorky guy. Like, Superman's like his whole entire disguise was always, he was kind of like the dorky, a little ditzy guy working at the at the Daily Planet. And it's like, that was his disguise. And then once he got the suit on, he was very serious. He was very justice oriented. He took care of business. And there wasn't much joking around. Like, you saw that later in some of the comics with Justice League, right? Where as he was establishing himself as a leader, he lightened up a little. He fell in love with Diana sometimes. Like, he became more human, right? As he got more. But this isn't the human version. This is the version that is very much what we're going to see with, like, the beginning, where he's trying to figure out who he is, right? Now, I think that's going to be very interesting to see how they do that, because they haven't been able to nail it, honestly, since Christopher Reeve.
And the first season of Superman and Lois is really, really good.
Yes.
Okay.
The first season of Superman and Lois is really, really good. And even into season 2, it's not that bad either. So I don't.
Smallville's pretty good. Smallville.
No, I was going to say that Smallville's
good.
But in terms of the silver, not in the small screen.
Yeah.
Movie.
And this right here is what worries me about this movie. Is that we're already getting characters that don't need to be in an origin Superman movie.
Yeah.
Green Lantern, Hawkgirl, Mr. Terrific. Like, these are things that we don't need.
I love the casting for Mr. Terrific, because Ed Gathegi is fantastic. He's a great actor.
Issue with Green Lantern, why do they keep fucking around? Why can they not just give us
too expensive?
But not even that. Give us Jon Stewart. You want diversity? My generation grew up with a black Green Lantern. Yes. We grew up with a very serious military black Green Lantern. He took the mantle. Hal was off doing whatever the fuck he was doing out in the universe, because he became like a main core member of the Lantern Corps, and he passed it off to a worthy person. It was, if you want diversity, non-forced. That was back when the color of the person didn't matter. They just made good characters.
What if they had been able to like buy out and get the contract for like Chadwick Boseman before he left, before he passed away, right? Like, imagine him as a
it would have been great.
Or Anthony Mackie, or even Anthony Mackie now, who's taking over as Captain America. Get him as or the other ones that I would say is, like, I really am enjoying the rise of John David Washington, who is Denzel Washington's son, who I think, he's not his dad. His dad is literally my favorite actor of all time, but he is coming up, and he is a talented dude. And there's a lot of those actors that could have done a great John Stewart.
Yeah. And it just bothers me too. Like, the forced diversity is nonsense, because if you're a comic book fan, there's plenty there. Yeah. Don't get me wrong, most of the characters are white, and most of your comic book artists were white, right? That was just kind of what it was. But you have Static Shock. Virgil Hawkins is one of the greatest They made a great TV show in the 90s about it. It's a fantastic run. His whole entire hero story is amazing. Now, I heard they want to bring it back. And now, instead of him like trying to help clean up his streets, he's now like a BLM activist, which if they do that, that can get fucked. But
They're doing a spot like they're still working on the Spawn movie. Like I just recently discovered the Spawn animated series, and
good.
Holy
You
shit.
missed out, man.
Oh, it's so fucking good.
It's addicting too. It should have went longer. It should have went so much longer, and it was so
A lot of those shows
good.
should have went longer. Where it's just, especially when they sit in the back of your head, you're like, oh, I remember those episodes. It was so awesome. And you look at it, it's like one season. It's like, oh my god, I thought there was so much more
It
content.
was a part of Saturday morning cartoons there, and it was there with like the ones that were like the Tick and shit like that. Like
no, Spawn the animated series. Like I'm talking like the R-rated one that was like an HBO series. Like this was not a Saturday morning cartoon.
There was another one that was a little more campy.
Yeah,
they did.
No, this is. I mean, this is. It's Keith David's. It's like Keith David's favorite show, like favorite role he's ever played. Okay. And I would love to see them try to get Spawn done correctly, right? Like there's all these characters that they just don't seem any interest in doing it.
And, and they did Blade correctly, right? With Wesley Snipes, Blade was fantastic. And again, people didn't realize that it was a Marvel superhero at the time. Though. They weren't promoting it as hard as that sense, right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that was one of the problems that was coming out when Black Panther was being promoted, right? Is they were promoting it as like the first Black Marvel superhero.
Yes, what the fuck?
And everyone's like, dude, Wesley Snipes killed this in like 1997.
War Machine existed already. Like,
well, no, when they were saying this, they were saying it's the first MCU movie starring a Black actor. But the point is that Wesley Snipes did it in the 90s when Industrial Rock was still huge.
With three really good movies too. Like they were three.
Well, I don't know about all of them being good.
Not everybody would agree with you about Blade Trinity, but I love that.
I was gonna say
I didn't need Blade Trinity to be good. I just needed Jessica Biel to continue to be in leather as long as possible. And I didn't give a shit about anything else going on. Okay, that was all that I needed.
A lot of people don't realize Ryan Reynolds was in that too.
Yes, he was. And he was the same character. He's still Van Wilder.
He was.
He always is. Hey, I love that movie. I won't hear a word against Van Wilder rules.
Van Wilder's really good. Naomi. That's all you got to say about Van Wilder. Naomi.
If they were jumping,
I moan backwards.
Taj.
If they were jumping into Spawn, I want them to do it at a time where the CGI doesn't look like crap. Like I want them to do it at a time where they actually take care and it looks more like fucking Davy Jones from Pirates of the Caribbean, where it still look great somehow, even now.
The problem with that is back, and especially this is an issue if it's going to be Marvel, and I'll tell you why. Yeah. So back in the day, when movies were being made, even with heavy CGI, they were not being done entirely on sound stages or green screen sound stages. Mm-hmm. They were going out to physical locations and filming principal photography in the real world, and then the CGI was overlaid. There was a movie. What was it? It came out last year. It was like one of my favorite movies. Oh, The Creator. With John David Washington, right? It only cost $80 million to make. That sounds like a lot of money, but by Hollywood standards, $80 million is not a lot of money.
Really is the norm right now. That's insane.
And it was fantastic, and it looked beautiful, and that's because he went out to physical locations. He didn't even have like a huge camera budget. He was using like an entry-level Hollywood, digi camera to make this film, and it looks beautiful, and that's because they went out to physical locations. The reason why it looks good in Pirates of the Caribbean is because they're filming on actual locations. Mm-hmm. And that's true of just about everything, prior to 2016, 2017. Yep. I mean, maybe not so far like that, but like Marvel itself is notorious for, have you ever seen the shot of Samuel L. Jackson from Secret Invasion where he's got like the prop gun that was done completely CGI?
Yeah, I think I remember that.
I not to watch Secret Invasion, but I probably saw this still.
I saw so many parts of that show.
I was like, bro, you could have just had the prop department make that for you. Yeah. It's literally what it is it's basically the base of the gun. Yeah. It's basically a barrel and a trigger and a handle, and a grip with no slide and a bunch of CGI markers on.
David, find that.
I'm doing.
It's amazing
because that's insane. But I mean, and it's just
they CGI a red dot onto this thing. It's like, bro, just build the gun.
Which is wild, right? Because like you said, they probably could be saving money going on location and doing things instead of paying. But it has to do, and I listen to Side Scores a lot with Stutter and Craig. They talk about the bloat in gaming, but I think that's just across media in general. There is just so much bloat of so many kids going out and getting these college degrees, and now you got to pay them $100,000+. So when you get 200 of these on the set and things like that, and in the back way, it's like, there was no difference. That's
see, there it is.
That's awful.
It's absolutely terrible. And it's embarrassing. It really does feel like there's less pride.
Yeah. Well, I think part
work.
of it might be that, look, if you're focused on protecting, spoilers and secrets, is that it's harder to control a physical location.
Yeah.
Also, when they make these scenes, there's all sorts of articles and evidence that they just monopolize the time of these VFX houses.
Yes,
so they want like 6 versions of a scene done. Right. And so they build it all out from their CGI green screen rooms rather than going on to physical locations. But the more time they spend actually out in the world, the better the CGI will look on top of it. There's a reason why so many movies from the 90s and the 2000s look as good as they do.
Yeah. And I think it's just like, because they're pumping out so many of these movies, which is something they probably shouldn't have done. Like after Endgame, there probably should have been a bit of a pause, especially if you're introducing newer characters that you want people to actually care about. Yeah, like there should have been a bit of a pause. Like there's no reason to try to get people to watch Shang-Chi. No one's going to watch Shang-Chi.
Shang-Chi, I was happy. Shang-Chi was better than the Eternals. Like
better
to like swing and kind of miss than just bore the hell out of it.
At least Shang-Chi had good martial arts moves, right? Like the actual choreography of the fight scenes were good. It's just the story was shit.
It's also the only role where Awkwafina wasn't annoying.
Yeah, Awkwafina's in everything.
What are you talking about? She was in Little Mermaid. That whole rap was amazing.
I forgot about that.
Hey, listen, you know what though? She wasn't terrible in was it Raya and the Last Dragon? That wasn't bad. It's actually a solid Disney flick, but it was better choreography in that fighting than anything they do in like a real person. So, but the thing is too, it's like if you're going to go full CGI and you're going to do some things like that, you got to take the time. Like James Cameron in Avatar, there was a ton of CGI in that, but he's
13 years. Look,
it's also a decade.
You got a universe to build. Yeah. We're all going to be 80 by the time they're done with.
You know what though? If it's good, I don't give a shit. Okay, like I will wait something if it's good. So. I mean, but you got to take the time to build that out. You can't do it all in 6 months, 9 months post. Like it's too much. So
can we find a middle ground between 13 years and
immediate?
No,
yeah,
probably not. Honestly, probably not with the way we currently are. And that kind of brings us into Hollywood as a whole. We're getting some good, right? And the good's getting rewarded. Your Oppenheimer is getting rewarded. Barbie wasn't great, but Barbie was fun. So Barbie got rewarded for fun and nostalgia, even though it was, feminist garbage. But it was
still actually making a movie for women instead of trying to make Marvel movies
exactly. So it's like when they do things that are actually good or ambitious that have some decency to them, they get rewarded, right? But so much of it sucks. Why is Hollywood on such a downward trend? Like, what is the issue outside of like the obvious? I will say it's woke nonsense, but is there anything more than that?
Look, I don't know if there's really a formula to it right now. Like my big issue is that streaming has also bloated the market as well. My issue with Marvel isn't just the movies; it's that it's become homework. You can't just watch the movie. You have 8 shows you have to watch. They need to make things for people to be able to just enjoy individual of everything else, right? Like to me, television should have been separate entirely.
If you didn't watch Loki, you had no idea who the fuck Kang was and why he was there.
Nor am I going to care, right? There's a reason why I still go through and watch the old Marvel Netflix shows, but don't care about any of the stuff that Disney Plus made, right? It was 4 shows that were connected, but at least it was just those 4 shows. And I wasn't So
and those shows should just be things that are Easter eggs in movies. It should be like little rewards. Okay, you watch this, you get to see something in the background or something that's a slight reference that doesn't really matter that much.
It shouldn't have story. It shouldn't have story importance if the whole point is to try to get your audience as wide as possible, right?
And to me, it took away the gravity of Kang when he started off on a TV show, right? Like usually, they did Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. really well because they hinted at the things going on in the movies because Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was fun, but you never actually got big time superheroes or big time villains in there. It was what was going on the outskirts that the big time ones weren't handling.
That was also done at a time where first of all, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. started off, I don't know if it did its whole run on network television, but the majority of its run was on ABC, right? So look, you weren't going to get big name Hollywood actors. They got Jamie Alexander as Lady Sif on there for a couple of episodes, but that was about the extent of the big name actors that you'll get a couple of them to maybe do 1 or 2 episodes episode guest appearances.
Yeah.
Did Fury ever show up on there?
I think he like showed up like towards
once or twice.
Yeah. And you know, my whole point was like the fact that Kang started off on a TV show, even the fact they wanted to run with him as the big bad, it took away the whole gravity of him, because it was like when you build him up on a movie, and that's like Ultron was fun as shit, even though it wasn't a great movie. Ultron felt imposing. They didn't execute it well, but
think of the way that they brought in Thanos.
Yeah,
he was in the end or the background of so many big movies until he was finally there.
And then with Guardians of the Galaxy, you see Ronan the Destroyer, and he's powerful, and Thanos is just like, you're a child. Get the fuck away from me. So
that was actually how I pitched. What if I had been like, if they had given me the reins at DC, that's what I would have done when they launched the original DCEU. Instead of doing Man of Steel and then Batman versus Superman and all these movies, what I would have done is I would have done exactly how they started. I would have done Man of Steel, and then I would have done The Flash, and then I would have done Wonder Woman and Aquaman, and Batman would have been post-credit scenes in all of those movies, building out information on people for the Justice League, starting with Superman. And then so he starts building up information on all of them, and it's basically him planning to fight Superman. So you do, as each movie happens, there's an Easter egg for each of those characters and more about Superman leading into Batman versus Superman. And you don't even necessarily need to cast Batman right off the bat to do that. You could do him, you could do it shot behind the, from behind the head, in the initial one, it gets done.
You see the cowl in some way.
Right? Like you get done with Wonder Woman and you see a map for Themyscira. You get done with
and you don't need to waste Doomsday either, because it was such a waste of Doomsday in that movie. Like
you get done with Flash and you get him looking at security camera footage of Barry, which they ended up actually putting in the movie and all that stuff like that. There was just so many fun and interesting ways that they could have done that.
Yeah.
But I don't hate that. Like, to your point about all the joking in Marvel movies earlier, that's why I don't hate those movies as much as other ones. I'm like, at least not everything ends on a
That's
my biggest issue with DC right now is, though, it's like, we swear we made a good movie. You didn't like our cut? Watch the director's cut.
Well, that's a Snyder thing. That's a Snyder thing. And we're seeing this in Rebel Moon now. His shtick is played out.
It's so tedious. It's like, if your movie, and the thing is too, the Snyder cut, everyone's like, it was amazing. I mean, the Snyder cut wasn't that much better. I'm not gonna lie.
I enjoyed I think that I disagree on Batman versus Superman. There was so much context to the Ultimate Edition of that film. That made the movie infinitely better.
The Justice League one was meh.
And here's the thing. That was at a time when they were like, they cut down the runtime on Batman versus Superman, because they wanted to fit as many showings a day as they could. Think about how long movies are now, right? That's my biggest complaint with most movies is like,
it's a 90-minute movie.
Like I miss the days of like 1 hour and 45-minute movies. If a movie is under 2 hours, I already like it more than I like most.
And that's the thing. Like, you used to be able to sit there and get, and like, I remember when like the Matrix 6 came out, and it was like, okay, these are long, but we could do it because it's rare, right? And these are really big blockbusters, and you got that.
Or Lord of the Rings, Lord of the Rings, right? The storytelling necessitates.
That's fine. Lord of the Rings should have never ended. I love Lord of the Rings, but
you'll get more. I can't wait to show you.
Shut up, David. I hate power, but yeah, no, I agree with you. So Hollywood, is there a way that it can kind of pull itself out right now? Like, we're seeing some slow things, like we're seeing hints. It's not as bad as it was for like a few years where everything was woke, feminized, and gay, right? It's not as bad as it was then. But
look, this is also a product of the internet. Like, we just live in an age now where entertainment is no longer channeled into like one medium, and everything has been pushed broadly. So you're not just competing with other movies now, you're competing with TikTok, you're competing with social media influencers, you're competing with streamers on Kick and Twitch and YouTube. Like, the next generation doesn't really care about the typical Hollywood movie, right? There was one movie that did really, really surprisingly well with Gen Z last year, and that was Five Nights at Freddy's. Okay. That makes sense. Right.
Yes,
IP wise, that makes perfect sense. Like, there's just this push now, and then streaming has made it even worse. There's just so much bloat everywhere.
It's terrible. And so, did you hear that they're potentially making a new scary movie and they're bringing back Anna Faris and stuff?
Are the Wayans a part of it?
Apparently the Wayans are a part of it. And if they are, then I will probably give it a shot, because I will watch anything the Wayans do. I think they are geniuses. But will it do well, right? Because it will only get to such a small niche audience of like millennials. Like
It'll
it'll
be an
only
older
try and be
crowd.
millennials.
It'll be an older crowd.
It wouldn't be a massive audience.
I mean, yeah, but millennials will come out for stuff they like, right?
we
Like
will.
there's a reason why, Barbie did as well as it did, driven by women and, millennial women leading into Gen Z and older demographics, and men will come out for the things that they like. I don't know if a scary movie, like you were talking about the Vince Vaughn clip that he was talking about, how everything has to be IP. By the way, I watched that and finally watched Battleship. Holy shit.
Hey, listen, Battleship was only good for Brooklyn Decker being around, right? Was it Brooklyn Decker?
No, that movie is amazing. I don't care what anyone says.
I never watched
Rihanna sucks, but everything else is fine.
Like, exactly. Rihanna can't act in that type of role. Like, I don't know if she does other stuff, but putting her in a military role doesn't really work. Here's the problem.
Stuff was hilarious.
It doesn't matter because the movie is so ridiculous. Even Liam Neeson isn't good in the movie, but it's still, I was like, dude, it's battleships fighting aliens. I don't need Daniel Day-Lewis. I just want to watch shit blow up.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I watched this. I said, this is maybe the strongest evidence there has ever been that the world actually ended in 2012. Because what I actually think happened is that instead of the Mayan calendar predicting the end of the world, what happened is we shifted timelines, because there is no way that there was any movie about Battleship made, which is aliens and military porn, and it wasn't directed by Michael Bay.
Yeah, no, I literally just looked it up. You said, all I want to see are the explosions. And I looked it up and I was like, did Michael Bay make this? No, Peter Berg.
He made Pain and Gain the next year, right? So he's probably in the middle of doing Pain and Gain at that time. Look, it's amazing. It's so bad, it's good, and I love it. And here's the thing. When you look at movies from that era, people are so broken and beaten down by modern day identity politics, and they're so raw to it when they see that messaging, that even the worst popcorn flick from 10 years ago, 20 years ago, looks like a masterpiece compared to the stuff that comes out today. Because even if it doesn't necessarily have a bunch of identity politics, a lot of it just feels lifeless. It doesn't feel like there's any joy in what's being made. I loved Twisters, okay? And I didn't think I was going to, because Twister is an amazing piece of 90s cinema. One of the maybe the first real disaster movie we had. And this movie is nothing like Twister. It's basically a weird, amazing, syrupy love letter to middle America with a quasi romance put into a bunch of CGI tornadoes. Okay. It treats middle America with respect. It doesn't treat the male characters as stupid or ignorant. He gets to be kind of like Glenn Powell's character gets to be kind of he's cocky. He's a bit of a hound. He clearly is very interested in this girl, but he's never portrayed as some type of creep or weirdo. You're allowed to just like it, right? Him and Sydney Sweeney are single-handedly bringing back movies where you're allowed to just kind of like it, and that's okay.
That's okay. And listen, Sydney Sweeney doing Goddess's work, saying she will continue to do nude scenes. Thank you, Sydney, for being a real one. So, Dave, go ahead.
Glenn Powell was also in a movie that came out on Netflix this year called Hitman, which was really, really fun, and I recommend that one as well.
So we'll get into recommendations. Dave, I want you to play with Vince Vaughn a little bit with Vince Vaughn.
It's only 45 seconds. I don't know if you want to go through the whole thing.
We can go through a good amount of it. Go ahead.
Or old school. What if I got to go back and, be in a fraternity now at this stage of the game? The people in charge don't want to get fired more so than they're looking to do something great. So they want to kind of, follow a set of rules that somehow get set in stone that don't really translate. But as long as they follow them, they're not going to lose their job, because they can say, well, look, I
crunched the numbers.
Yeah, I made a movie off the board game Payday, so you can't, even though the movie didn't work, you can't let me go, right? So, people want to laugh.
And I think it does say a lot, because we do bring up the wokeness and everything like that, which is there. It just is, and you can't say it's not. But it like Brett said, with people being in middle management. A lot of it is corporatist. A lot of it is CYA. And a lot of it is just well, we don't know if it works. We're a little too risk adverse on this thing. We don't want to take the risk to try to do that type of stuff. And only those who have been grandfathered in get any kind of chance of taking a risk on a movie.
Most of the movies I find, look, I hate the word woke anyways. I really do. As terminology goes,
Glover sucks for bringing that into the vernacular with this stupid fucking song.
Is that mine or is my audio
in the background?
Is that you, Dave?
It shouldn't be.
Is that mine?
That might be you, Brett.
Is it oh, yep, that's me.
Okay.
As a word, I find the word woke to be, it's too broad, and you could ask 57,000 different people and get 57,000 different definitions as to what that means. It's the same thing with terms like girl boss, right? Like there were people telling me that the main character in Twisters was a girl boss, and I vehemently disagreed with it. So as a linguistic shorthand, I don't like it. But with movies in Hollywood, big budget films, I usually find that it's just poor storytelling, and a lot of the identity politics ends up in the television shows, right? Like you see more of it. Like I don't expect for a second that Captain America 4 is going to have the level of identity politics or social commentary that was present in Falcon and
Winter Soldier.
Yeah. Like I imagine that they will keep it more there because there's more at risk when they do it on the big screen, right? Yes. So it's not that it's not a problem, it's that it's become a scapegoat for any problem in a movie. Mm-hmm. Maybe the best example of one that was like when I was watching Indiana Jones in the Dial of Destiny, like that was awful, right?
Yeah.
Phoebe Waller-Bridge's character is insufferable. It's the worst type of feminism put into a film. I hated it, okay? But I understand that different people are going to have different connotation as to what that means. Maybe it doesn't bother them in the same way that it bothers me. So I don't want to label it as that. I want to say that character is shit, but not say that it's necessarily just that problem. Yep. There's a lot of things that go into making a movie, and getting it done in and of itself is a huge effort. Making good movies is a lot harder than people want to give these people credit for. It's not easy.
I feel like you always need a little bit of a stroke of luck to make a good movie.
You do.
But I think the one thing is when the people that interview that are doing these roles make it obvious that that's part of what they're trying to do, right?
Yeah, the actors are
Rachel Ziegler is talking about Snow White and the 7 diverse individuals. They are making it obvious that they are trying to do that. So then
99 times to me, it feels like they make it seem like worse in the promotional material than it actually is in the movie. So what I think it is like, it's like when they were talking about that with the Acolyte, right? They're like, it's the gayest Star Wars ever. I'm like, does this interviewer just hate you? Like, does this dude just want your shit to fail? Right?
Like you cut the head off before it even tries to like sit up. Like, and it's wild to me too. And it's like, I mean, I guess
to be fair, Hedlund kind of does it to her. Did it to herself.
She does. No, and she answered the question and she went along with it. She could have pulled it back to the middle and said, "I think that there's something in this show that appeals to everyone, even if she's lying." And say it. So you.
And not only that, like coming out before the show and saying like, "Oh, this is a mix of Frozen and all this type of things that we have all that thrown in." It's like, what show is it? This is a Star Wars show. What the fuck are you talking about?
But then again, it's not though, right? Because they're not
supposed to be Star Wars show.
You know, with me, you, and Brett, we're sitting here. We like our shows. We like our movies. So, like, if we were asked to make something we enjoyed, or at least peripherally enjoyed, we'd probably study up on it, try to figure out what made it good, and try to make it something similar with what our own twist, right? Because you're always going to put something of you. There is creative liberties that even fans allow people to take, right? But when you're sitting there and you're getting people who aren't fans, who are even sometimes antagonistic to the fan base or what the product was, this is what you get. And it's not surprising. So I want to end off with a little bit of a white pill. What should we be looking forward to, Brett? When it comes to TV and movies, what should we be looking forward to?
Okay, so like if you're talking about stuff that's already out that you want to see, I like Deadpool and Wolverine. I like Twisters. I like The Fall Guy. I liked Argyle. A lot of people disagree with me on that one. And I liked Hitman.
Theaters? Isn't Twisters coming out soon? I heard.
It's already. Unfortunately, it's already coming out on streaming, which is again, that's another thing they're doing that's handicapping everything, is that they're giving them very limited theater windows, which then how do you expect to make your money when you're not giving it a chance to do so? I think Inside Out just had its 8th or its ninth week at the theaters. But look, I don't know the release dates on these things, but if you're looking for something to watch, I love The Terminal List, and I do believe that they're making a follow-up to The Terminal List. I loved Reacher season 1 and 2, despite all of the stupid stuff that Alan Ritchson has said. I think he's great in that role. Twisted Metal on Peacock was fantastic, and I believe they're making.
I started it. I haven't finished it, but it's pretty good.
They're making an Alex Cross show. Like if you ever saw like Along Came a, they're making it. Yeah. It's not going to be anywhere near as dark. It looks like as the Morgan Freeman stuff, right? But did you know Tyler Perry played Alex Cross in 2012?
Wait, what?
Yeah, I never saw it. I never saw it, but apparently he did. But I have seen the Morgan Freeman movies, right? You know, Kiss the Girls and Along Came a Spider. But they're making an Alex Cross TV show with Aldous Hodge, and it's being produced by Ben Watkins, who was one of the head writers involved in Burn Notice back in the late 2000s.
Very nice.
So that's really, really good. There's a great show that was on Amazon Prime and then on Freevee called Almost Paradise, which is really, really fun. It's about a character named Alex Walker, who's like a retired DEA agent who's like, I think he's in Malaysia. It's a lot of fun. And then there was a show called SEAL Team that ran on network television for like 3 seasons and then went over to Paramount Plus. Yeah, see, Tyler Perry.
I found it. I was like wait,
did somebody just wake up one day and they're like, who wouldn't be
what
good
the hell?
yeah. I looked up Alex Cross 2012 and it just popped right up.
Okay.
So all of those are shows that I believe are getting more seasons that are really, really good. Christian Kane was in Almost Paradise. It's produced by the same dude who made Leverage.
Leverage was
and The Librarians, which is fantastic. They're making a sequel to The Librarians. I will not be watching that because I love the original Librarians and I didn't watch.
They're gonna fuck it up. Yeah.
Look, maybe it's great, but I don't want to. I don't have the time to.
Here's the thing: you know that you'll wait. And if it gets to like the season 3, you're gonna be like, all right, let me see if this is anything. You're gonna do it to yourself. If it gets to like, if it gets to season 2, it's like, all right, they probably already planned this. Season 3, it's like maybe it's okay. Let's see.
And as far as movies go this year, there's Wolves, not Wolves. It's called Wolves with
I've heard of that.
Brad Pitt and George Clooney. They play like dueling fixers or assassins that have to like come together and work together. I'm guessing half the budget went to their paychecks. More than anything, Killer's Game with Dave Bautista.
I did see it.
Obviously, a lot of people are looking forward to Joker, Folie à Deux. Venom 3, as bad as Sony has been at making Marvel movies, I think Tom Hardy has done well enough in carrying. The first Venom is good. The second Venom movie kind of limps across the finish line. I think Naomi Harris was miscast in that a little bit.
I think so.
And then Red 1 starring The Rock, which is a Christmas movie coming out in November or December, and then Sonic 3.
Sonic 3,
I forgot Sonic.
Genuinely excited for, because the first 2 Sonics, after they fixed his eyes, they made good movies.
And movies I'm not looking forward to are The Crow.
Oh Jesus!
Gladiator.
When I first saw that, I was like, "No, that's terrible."
I was like, there is no universe where a Crow movie has Post Malone in the trailer.
Yes, it's awful. It's terrible.
Like, I love Post Malone. It doesn't mean you put his music in a Crow trailer.
Oh my God!
I'm not gonna.
And Kanye in the Gladiator trailer. So it's like, there you go.
I mean, that's that they did that before. They did that with like a Kanye and Jay-Z song in the trailer for Assassin's Creed, and everyone's like, it's the Spanish Inquisition. Why am I hearing Jay-Z?
Watch the throne because royalty and
that's the worst part. That's the worst part is they used the goddamn song because what's a king to a mob?
And he says Colosseum like 3 times.
That's that's the only reason they used it. And it's just like, how shallow can you be? What is happening?
White millennial girl that listened to this is like, I know a song. Let's put this on.
To be fair, that's actually a good song.
I like the album's good. Yeah. The whole entire collab album's fine. Does not fucking belong in most of these films.
There's a video called "How to Make a Blockbuster Movie Trailer." Have you ever seen this? You should show this to the arts. Google or go to YouTube and search up. I don't remember. Just search up "How to Make a Blockbuster Movie Trailer," and it'll just be a black screen and it'll say like "boom" or "whoosh," and then click on it. No, seriously, watch it. You will laugh. Yeah, watch it. It's so funny.
Dave, do your job.
I am doing my job. It's up.
I can't see it yet. right,
Well,
what
I
do we
had a
got?
surprise for you.
I saw that. I wasn't
You
happy
gotta
about
wait
it.
for
Go
it. You
ahead,
had to
throw it
wait
up.
for it.
Full screen.
I did. Oh, yes.
Have you ever wondered about this particular thing? Because it turns out that that thing is real.
Yeah.
It's all the remix song.
Oh my god! And can we talk about? Everyone should watch more of that. We don't need to go through the full 230 because it's accurate as hell. Can we talk about that bois? That bois is in every single trailer.
Michael Bay's fault, man. It's Michael Bay's fault in Transformers.
But it fits because they're fucking robots, okay? So it's a robotic sound. That makes sense with robots. David, don't do this to me.
You know, he put
I
out
ended off with the white pill, Dave.
You know who he put out of business? He put out of business like trailer announcers, right? You don't really see a lot of trailers where they're like talking through the trailer. Like,
because Optimus Prime was the ultimate trailer announcer. Do you humans understand?
So I do want to finish off with something we should all be looking forward to. Something that is the greatest white pill.
Brett David hates me.
And that is
I saw this. Yes.
Rings of Power season 2.
For reference, I'm a massive Lord of the Rings fan. And I couldn't even hate watch.
Just this shot that they have here.
The one from season 1 was worse. Do you remember the one from season 1
where they're all turning around?
Where it's just a black background?
Yes.
I loved Gary Nerdrotics. He quoted this and said the young and the tokenless. Like it's like this.
It's embarrassing.
It's so sad because Cynthia Adai Robinson is one of my favorite actresses. She's fantastic. It's miscast.
Found herself in the wrong spot. Man.
I mean, it's like, but here's the thing: they're getting paid.
She played world's skinniest Amanda Waller in Arrow. She's literally the opposite of a wall.
She only gets bigger. Like every time she comes back.
But it's like there's like, I mean, is there anything mythical about this? And what the fuck was it shot with? An iPhone? Like, this is awful.
I fucking love every part of this. This wasn't even getting into the full article.
Oh,
don't look at this. Look at Morphin. Look at Galadriel. She looks incredible.
I blocked it out of my mind. Like, I watched the new trailer and it was about 3.5. It was like, what, 4 minutes long? I was like, if they'd actually cut it in half and stopped at the 2-minute mark, it might have actually looked mildly engaging to people who don't care about like source material. But
look, it's so ironic.
I mean, the fact that this got a second season, I hope.
I mean, they had to. They spent too much money.
They were on the hook for, I think, 3 or 5, if I remember correctly.
They spent like $500 million just acquiring the IP, so there was no way it wasn't getting more than one season.
Honestly, like, I hate the rest of the Tolkien family after this. Like, I actually have a true vendetta.
Look, there's an actual discussion to be had about the efficacy of actually allowing these properties to continue after their owners die, right? So usually you can expect that the children, the children of the people who created this stuff may have the property's best interest at heart.
If they were amazing.
If they were close with their parents, right? Yes, but once you get to that second or third generation down the line, it's just money.
It's just collect royalties and get fucked. Don't do anything. You're not allowed to do anything with it. You could just take money whenever that's like all the books, the millions of Lord of the Rings and Hobbit books that are still being sold to new generations because there's the
they're being sold because people are watching Rings of Power.
Don't do it. Don't do it. We're burning.
There's also the Lord of the Rings animated movie coming out this year.
I just loved our terrible 80s ones. Can we just leave to the 80s ones were nice and campy. I don't need anything more than that.
Don't forget that Henry Cavill is in the process of making a Highlander movie right now.
Yes.
Did he officially drop out of Warhammer?
No.
No, Warhammer is definitely having trouble with it right now.
It is in death throes. They've rewritten it like 19 times. Yep. So, I mean, it's interesting. It's an interesting time in Hollywood and culture. And I think that there aren't two better people to navigate that through than you and Mary, Brett.
Thank you.
We appreciate you jumping on the show, man. This is lots of fun.
Appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
So once again, he is Brett Dasovic. He is I said it again twice. Say so. He is the co-host of the Pop Culture Crisis, Timcast Media Network. You can go find them there. 3 p.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday, 5 days a week. And also, he does jump on, if anyone wants to see him more talk heavier politics, he does jump on Timcast occasionally if you're a fan of that type of stuff. So go there. Anything else that you want to throw out there?
If they need me on IRL, I'm like, you guys must be desperate, because I'm just going to say the same thing every time. I'm like, the media is evil. Politicians are evil. Get off my lawn. That's literally it every time. No, guys, follow me on Instagram and on X at Brett Dasovic on both of those platforms. And please, guys, do check out the show. We are live 5 days a week. Again, 3 p.m. Eastern right there on YouTube. If you like the audio version of a podcast, we are also on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, all the platforms. And guys, thank you so much for having me.
Of course.
So once again, we are the Alex Cuesta Show. You can go find us anywhere you can find a podcast. Post all this. We'll be there on the audio version. If you're watching this, YouTube, X, Facebook, thank you very much. We appreciate everyone out there that watches every single week. And we'll be back next week with another fun show. David, maybe you'll be back. Maybe